Kia ora everybody, you're tuning in to Dr. Burst from Tamaki Makaurau and Aotearoa. For those tuning in for the first time, this video is part of a public activation called the Avondale Pavilion project. Each month, we get a different writer and or artist on board to repaint the pavilion structure in the heart of Avondale at Avondale Art Park. We're surrounded by a local legal wall, and the idea is to update the pavilion every couple of weeks, capture the artist painting in real time, while pairing that video with a conversation with the artist. In this month's video, we sit down with Kofi, aka Meeps from FSA in Ōtautahi. Originating from graffiti, she is an artist and designer whose practice is incredibly diverse and very broad. She has incredible illustrative work and was one of the headline artists at the recent Flair Festival. This is the first time I've been able to sit down with her and have a chat, so I'm really stoked that you're here. But to kind of kick off, maybe you can introduce yourself and let us know where you come from.
Hi, I'm Kofi and I'm from Ōtautahi.
And first off, thank you so much for coming up to Tamaki Makaurau to paint this month's pavilion. To kick off the conversation, I'd like to actually take it right back to the beginning. You mentioned you're from Ōtautahi, Christchurch. So where does your story begin exactly?
Well, I moved from Wanaka to Christchurch when I was around 10. And just going from like a rural setting into like, you know, buildings and graffiti and stuff was quite a shock, and as soon as I moved there, I was just really inspired by all the graffiti and like sort of the ruggedness of the city compared to my country life.
Wow, I didn't know that that's where you came from. So Wanaka must have been a completely different environment from Christchurch. So what year was it that you moved into the city?
I'm not sure. I was about 10. I was born in 93, so was it 2003?
2003. Nice, that kind of feels like a lifetime ago for me, but what would you say is the first bits and pieces of graffiti that you recall seeing?
I think I spent a lot of, well, not when I was 10, but growing up, maybe like the alleyways, and then the first thing I saw was all the throwies, really, and like in crazy places, like upsides of buildings, and I was just like, thought it was cool, like how did they get up there, like such a sick spot. And then I started seeing like the productions down the train tracks by the DTR, and then that was like in driving over the Morehouse Bridge, and there was like a main spot, like a fame spot that would be changing all the time, and it was really cool.
And out of all of the throw-ups that you saw, were there any particular writers that kind of stood out to you?
Dommy and Sleeper, probably.
Were those writers quite up?
Yeah, Dommy, I think pre-earthquake, and then Sleeper, maybe pre-earthquake and post, but he did like a real iconic one. There was like a mini attached to the side of the building. Oh, fuck, it was so cool. He hit some crazy spots, like you'd drive to work or whatever in the morning and there'd be like up on the mad billboards and stuff. It was just... Yeah,
I remember seeing some of their graph. They definitely got some pretty killer spots, especially that one on top of the Mini. In addition to the bombing, you mentioned you saw the DTR productions. What was it about their work that kind of caught your attention?
I guess just how they worked together on like one theme, and it had like the character and the pieces, and it was really cool, eye-catching. And then also I was really influenced by a lot of the wild style that was around back then. It was kind of like the predominant style as well, like that cool 2000s look.
I totally agree with you. I mean, that era I think has had some of the best graffiti, and overall globally I think there was just a lot of experimentation and people pushing boundaries aesthetically, whereas now it's kind of a bit more bombing. But I guess kind of back to Christchurch, after you saw all of the graph on the street, when and what was it exactly that made you pick up the spray can and actually go paint something?
Yeah, I was tagging in my books in intermediate probably. I think I also went to Waltham Primary School, and down the road from there was Waltham Park where the hip hop summit was, and then there was all the old graph from that. I think it was 2000 something, and that was a big influence, and I was quite shy and just tagged in my books and didn't really want to show anyone. And when I first went tagging, it might have been, I was a bit of a tomboy and had a lot of guy friends. I think it was probably that sort of group of people in high school I started like showing and doing like pen tags and whatever, making your own mops and stuff.
That's sick. I mean, during that time when you first started, did you have a painting buddy or a mentor or a guide or something like that, or was it kind of just straight in there solo?
Not really, but I did. My first proper boyfriend, I guess, I did a lot of tagging with him. I guess I could say he was one of the influences.
That's awesome. So just to confirm, when you started graffiti, were you in intermediate or secondary school?
That was more in the books, but I didn't really like start tagging on things until I was in high school.
Okay, gotcha. So when you were in secondary school, were you already like creatively inclined?
Yeah, I started off high school okay, and then just started sort of getting in with the bad crowd and probably going through some stuff, and then ended up hanging out with all the naughty kids, and I was a bit naughty and I would kind of get high every day. And then in class I would just draw every day pretty much and draw all over my hands, and I'd get in trouble and sent away, and then I ended up dropping out pretty much. But I pretty much stayed doing design, art and photography, and then I don't think I showed up for any of the other classes.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's difficult to want to learn, I guess, all of the other subjects at school when you don't really see the value in them kind of at that age, and you already kind of discovered that being creative is what you want to do. But I guess looking forward to now, do you view yourself more as like an artist, designer, or maybe a combination of both?
Mix of both, I'd say. Like, I use a lot of my like hand-drawn techniques in my design, which kind of gives me a point of difference.
So after you left secondary school, what happened next? What was the plan?
Well, when I sort of got asked to leave, and then they were basically pushed me into hospitality. So I did that for a few years. I think I got a job at Wendy's hamburgers because it just opened in Christchurch. Wendy's, and then I think I worked at McDonald's, and then like a working men's club, but just regular waitress jobs, because I think when I dropped out I was 16, so I knew that I couldn't go and study till I was 18, because you can't get a student allowance or a loan or anything till you're 18. So I did that for 3-4 years or so, and then I don't know, I was just like, fuck this, and then decided to try and study because I didn't have NCA. I was able to do like a certificate at ARA, and then that gave me the ability to go into the bachelor's, and that was visual communication, which is basically graphic design. And then after that they gave me a scholarship to do postgrad.
That's wicked. And so after a couple of years of study at ARA, what was it that you discovered about your practice?
Man, the way they taught and everything was so different than, like, I would get punished for being creative at high school basically. Like, my art teacher wasn't very nice to me, and but if I drew on my hands or something at ARA, the teacher would be like, oh my god, that's so cool, show me what you've drawn, That was, Henry Sunderland's best. He's really cool. I don't know, they just sort of embraced my creativity, and I just learnt so many disciplines as well, like animation, coding, logos, drawing, videos, and it was like peak creativity really. And then access to all the resources as well, like screen printing and like computers and everything. It was just sick.
That's always awesome to be able to experiment with a range of different practices and I guess upskill in a range of different disciplines, right? I guess during your time at ARA, were you integrating any of the graffiti into your study?
Yeah, definitely. Like when I was working at Wendy's and stuff, that was probably when I had the most time, obviously, to go and paint and stuff. And then when I started studying, I definitely incorporated all of my graph into my, I think for one of my projects we had to make like an exhibition poster, like as practice for graphic design, and I think I did mine about askew.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then I had to make a flash project, and it was like showed where I want to be and like my influences, and I used a bunch of graphics, and then and it was like I chose the option. It was like what I don't want to do, and it was like an office building, and it was like it was cool. It definitely like a lot of typography in my work, and like characters, and sort of intertwined with like social and political issues as well.
And when you were at ARA, did you already know that you wanted to have a creative career, or were you still kind of putting the feelers out there and just seeing what happened?
I didn't really know it was an option until I started studying. Like I knew I was, I guess, a rebel or whatever. I didn't want to have a boss, or I just had the aim of working for myself and trying to do something that I enjoyed. So like the introductory course is like you do a bit of everything, and that's where I found like I could learn software and make like design and stuff. So that was cool, and like bring my animations and illustrations into a digital world.
Could you tell us maybe 3 achievements or highlights that you feel quite proud about since finishing your studies? I'm sure ARA would be super proud to hear about how far you've come.
I've been out like 4 years now, so finishing my degree was awesome, and then I basically went straight away. I was like, right, I'm going to do freelancing. I'm not going to get a job, I'm just going to try and do it. And then I sort of been building up my clients since then, but I guess being part of the hip hop summit was pretty cool, since I grew up seeing all of that, and then like coming full circle, and I got to be a part of it, which was dope. Yeah, I guess I got my first studio in a co-working space, and I've worked my way up, and now I have my own studio and shop, which is really cool. That's a big achievement. And also probably being in my first festival as well.
And what was the first festival that you participated in?
The Flair one.
Could you tell our viewers a little bit about what Flair Festival is and what your involvement has been with the event?
Yeah, sure. Flair Festival is a new festival that came to Christchurch, basically put together by a lot of businesses in Salt District, which is an area in the CBD of Christchurch. And they just wanted to sort of continue the legacy of the OU ones. I think George was involved from OU as well. And because a lot of the murals have been covered up by the new buildings and the graffiti, so they wanted to put in 7 new artworks, and I got to be part of it, and I also put together the exhibition as part of that.
And who were the main artists involved in that lineup there?
Koyu, Icarus, Deos, me, Cal Sunshine, Wongi, yes, sorry, Wongi.
From afar, looking online, the festival looks super dope, and I'm really impressed with the variety of work that you guys all produced. It's really great to see such a high level of murals being produced in Aotearoa. I know that as part of the event there was also a panel discussion with a series of the artists, and shout out to my good buddy Ruben Woods, who was also the moderator for that panel discussion and coming through with the hard-hitting questions. But yeah, those things that you just identified obviously are some great milestones, but turning I guess specifically to your practice, I can see from your Instagram that you do a variety of fine arts work, illustration and design. In terms of your fine arts and or illustration work, what types of subject matter do you actually like illustrating, and what are some of the meanings behind some of the imagery?
Yeah, I do so much different stuff, but I guess I'm known for in Christchurch is doing a lot of hip-hop gig posters and single art, album art, a lot of hip-hop graffiti influenced illustration. I'm doing some song art for a UK producer, which has got some cool UK rap on it, and fingers crossed I should be doing one for like Next Generation Wu-Tang, which is like the sons of Wu-Tang, which is fucking cool. Sorry, I mean like song art, like a single release, like not an album but just like a single song.
Yeah, that's super dope. I mean, and just coming back to your mural work, that you painted for Flare Festival. What was the meaning or story behind that?
Yeah, basically it was sort of like, because it's a big pressure doing your first big wall, and I wanted to sort of represent where I came from and all my influences. So it was, I wanted to show the influence of hip hop on my art, and graffiti as part of hip hop. I painted basically myself walking down the tracks with all my gear in my bag, listening to music, because that's what I like to do, and then like a personification of music, which is like a cool like retro TV chick, which like symbolizes like 90s hip hop sort of nostalgia, pre-social media sort of vibes.
And what's the top 5 hip hop acts of all time?
Tom Scott, Mellow Downs, Nesian Mystic, Mos Def, and I'm really into UK rap by this what are they, a record label called High Focus. I could probably list a lot of it.
And in terms of your design work, how would you describe your aesthetic?
I've worked for a lot of different clients, like corporate to small business, but I'm guessing I've sort of built up a clientele of sort of organic or like so businesses that do good. I've done like vegan cafes, like stuff, a lot of stuff for LGBT. I just did a collab with a teak. I think I'm allowed to say that. It's like a zero waste skincare company. It was quite big. Packaging design. Did like a big burger company there. They let me just illustrate all over the walls.
It sounds quite broad and varied.
Yeah, that's why I have a hard time describing what I do. But, I think the main thing is probably like graffiti and hip hop's my favourite thing to do.
And what is it about hip hop that draws you to that music or culture?
I guess I'm into like a specific sort of hip hop, like old school sort of storytelling rap and like really lyrical rap. I guess that's why I like Tom Scott so much, because he's like basically talking about the culture of New Zealand. But yeah, and all the elements of hip hop as well. Like back in Christchurch, I know a few break dancers, and got my crew, my graph crew, and my partner's a rapper as well.
That's wicked that you're able to connect with someone in that way. I mean, putting the focus back on graffiti, I've asked Fluoro this question in the past as well, but how does it feel to be a female writer in a male-dominated graffiti scene?
It's been challenging, I guess, when you go painting with someone, or like they start messaging you don't really know if they're being creepy or not, and or like I've had quite a bit of abuse as well, other graphers, yeah. I guess just feeling like I can't go out, or I can go out by myself, but I'm always like not 100% feeling safe.
I think that in some situations it can be dangerous for men too, but yeah, I guess moving on from there, you mentioned to me that you're also self-employed as an artist and designer. I really take my hats off to you and all of the brave creators out there who are really giving it a shot in the industry and taking those risks. You told me that you recently, as part of your journey, you've set up a new studio space in the city centre. Could you tell us a little bit about what that entails?
Yeah, sure. I've got a new shop and studio in the CBD in Christchurch, just behind Little High, if you know the area. And I'm pretty much just working from there, and I've got some of my stuff for sale, which is some of the clothing I make that's from secondhand materials, and I paint like old school hip hop jackets. A lot of my stuff's very 90s streetwear influence, like big baggy tees and graphic illustrations, and I screen printed it all and sourced it all myself, and then I make like graphic sort of earrings from like MDF that I like offcuts, and then I use my leftover paint to paint them with my paint scraps, and I've got like prints for sale, and just the corporate people look at me weird, but they thought I was a squatter.
That's okay.
But it's really funny.
That's awesome that you've got a public-facing space to showcase your work. That's definitely something that I hope to work towards in the future sometime. But in terms of graffiti, what are your views of the current graffiti scene in Ōtautahi?
I don't know, I wouldn't say it's thriving. I think it's sort of like the graph's more just bombing now than like pieces or productions. Like there is still that happening, but it's not as busy as it has been.
In your opinion, who are 3 writers that are doing some good graffiti at the moment?
Isaac, that's in my crew. He's from Chile and he does really cool characters. There's like 2 young guys in my crew that are really talented as well. There's Exact and Sua.
In terms of your graffiti specifically, who would you say are maybe 3 people that have influenced you?
I guess from back in the day, it was probably like IQ. Yikes was a big one. Wongi as well, his characters. Floro, she was really good when I was coming up. My partner, he does graph as well.
Man, I just want to throw it out there, but Ōtautahi has bred some crazy good talent. Obviously in the last episode, we interviewed Icarus, we talked about Decipher, you've mentioned Yikes. There's so many dope people that are putting in incredible work and have been for such a long time. In terms of, I guess, turning a little bit to your illustration practice, who are some illustrators that have influenced or inspired you in that space?
Man, I look at so much, but I guess one of my 2 all-time favorites would be Takashi Murakami and his Misery.
Yeah, those are all great illustrators, and love Misery's work as well. She's a good friend and crewmate of mine. But in terms of your cultural identity, you mentioned to me that you're also Samoan and Dutch. How connected are you to those cultures, and what role do those cultures play in your art?
I guess being biracial, I guess there's influence from both sides, but I've been doing a bit of work with the Samoan community, and I haven't done much Dutch stuff to be honest, but I wouldn't say it's particularly obviously cultural, but a lot of Polynesians and stuff are very influenced by hip hop, and as a means to use your voice. So I guess through that lens, there's a bit of influence from that Polynesian hip hop music and art.
And looking forward now, do you have any projects or things on the horizon for when you get back home?
I lost a lot of work due to COVID. I had quite a few big projects that were cancelled. I'm probably just going to focus on making new stuff for my shop, potentially doing some more paintings, because I don't really do much large-scale paintings anymore because I ran out of time. But
you said to me you wanted to have a solo exhibition at some point, right?
Yeah, I would like to one day have a solo exhibition, if I can find the time and maybe get some funding, or just begin with a cool concept, or potentially get my master's and put a lot of research behind it.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see you bring that to life in the future, and I'm sure you're going to do a killer show. So that kind of brings us to the end of this conversation, but in closing, is there any shout outs that you would like to make to anybody?
Yes, Local Elements, that's my partner. Look him up on Spotify. And Selena, that's my best friend. She was supposed to come with me, but she couldn't. She organised the festival as well. And yeah, that would do.
Awesome, Kofi. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspectives with the audience. I really appreciate the grind that you're on, and I'm really excited to see what you do with the studio space, and also really looking forward to that solo exhibition when you kind of pull that together one day. I'm really stoked that we also have another female artist representing the graffiti scene. So if anything, this is also a call out for more females to be involved. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning into this month's Pavilion video, and we definitely have more content on the way. So if you did enjoy this content, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment below so we can keep documenting and sharing some of the stories of artists here in Aotearoa with the rest of the world. Peace.